be someone that graduated in my high school in Missouri, okay, ended up being her best friend, I can say at the same time. And you're going to say, well, and she kind of told her there was this church, in town that had a good praise and worship band or something like that. I may mess up some of the details, okay, but and so she went over there and she heard the she didn't even see me, I think, that first morning. I was co-pastoring with someone else, and he said that there's a Bible study tonight that Brad usually does, and so she shows up at the Bible study, and a few weeks later after that, she's asking questions. As a matter of fact, she comes up after that Bible study, and she says, you mean Jesus was a Jew? Right? Okay, yeah, she's 40 years old, and she goes, Jesus was a Jew, that kind of a thing. And I said, I think sometimes we have to remember that when we're dealing with people who aren't where we're at in this walk, that there was a day when we went, Jesus was a Jew. I didn't even know that. And so the relationship just kind of over time, just from there, we got married in 1997, and we were married, like I said, almost 22 years, and I had started the Wild Branch Ministry quite a period of time before that. And at that time, I started with Wild Branch newsletters, which had a circulation of 6. Okay, and that's how I believe it should start. And it was just, I think it was just the combination of the internet. I'm going to propose to you that when I first went out onto the speaking circuit back in the late 90s, that a lot of the people that came to the conferences came out of the Worldwide Church of God. Okay? Or Seventh-day Adventists. I see a lot of Seventh-day Adventists, and I see a lot of Worldwide Church of God. And that's because this thing we call Hebrew roots, basically, even though there's always been a remnant of God's people, I'll try to make this short as I can, always been a remnant of God's people, but this thing called Hebrew roots basically started between 1994 and 1996. It was about that period of time. So about the time the internet started to get popular, we found out about each other. That's basically the part of the history. We found out about each other. And at the same time, I don't think it's a coincidence that between those years, the leaders of the Worldwide Church of God made a theological decision to just tell everybody, well, go back to your, wherever, just scatter back. We're kind of disbanding this kind of whole thing, and everybody kind of go back to your churches. And so a lot of Worldwide Church of God people were going, we don't want to go back. You just spent 50 years with Herbert W. Armstrong telling us, what these pagan blah, 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 all this stuff was, and now you want us to go back. And so they were finding out that there was people out there teaching the Sabbath, teaching the feasts. And that's what attracted them to come in. And I don't want to go through the rest of it, but that's basically the background. Everything else has been kind of history. And what makes this thing, at least this ministry, work well is because of Carol and I, not just Brad. And that's in perfect harmony with what I've been talking about all week long. She may be good, I may be good, but unless we work together, it's not going to produce the life in it that the Father designed in the first place. Okay, we'll just go to the next scene.
How'd you get to GIT?
How do you get to GIT? My part in it was when, in my recollection, is that when my part in it now, because Brian went to the history actually with a little bit with us in our board meeting. Just went through. But my part in it was that Bill Cloud and I were out here doing something together, and there was this time that we went out into you and John. This is my memory, and we were at a rest stop somewhere. Had a little covering and some little concrete picnic tables, and they were telling us about this. And they were talking about the teachers. And at first, if I remember, the teachers were going to be Bill and I. And then somewhere along the way, Bill just kind of got involved in other kind of things, and I just really was turned on by this whole thing. This is 2007.
This was up in Bend, Oregon.
Yeah, it may not even have been here. Yeah, it was at Love for Israel conference up in Bend, Oregon, is when I was first introduced to this and the possibility of being the first teacher out there to do this. And there was no plans for 11 years or so. I don't even think of that. And then I grabbed Rob and we came. So that's my involvement with GMP. Yes, Karen.
Were you still pastoring the Foursquare type non-denominational when you started getting into Hebrew roots?
Yeah, I started getting into the Hebrew roots before I was even pastoring. that church, about basically 1993. And that's when I started, because I was trained, when I first went to seminary in the late 70s. I only lasted a couple of months. And thank goodness now in hindsight, because I may be a pinheaded theologian somewhere in some theological institution if I had stayed at that place. But I didn't. Once again, same reason why I didn't make it in professional baseball. I wanted to be a rock and roll star. And so I went out to, anyway. And then when I started to move into Hebrew, particularly the ancient Hebrew, that's when I discovered that the Torah is for us and the New Testament's not new, it's just true. You know, all those kind of things. That's when I discovered. Okay. Another question. Yes. Tell me.
Will you be kind enough to help me understand 1 Peter 3:18?
1 Peter 3:18. Because even Mashiach, or even Messiah, once suffered for sins, the righteous for the unrighteous, to bring you to Elohim, having been put to death indeed in the flesh, but made alive in the spirit, in which he also went and proclaimed unto the spirits in prison. Yes, absolutely. But let's read the context. Who were disobedient at one time, and the patience of Elohim waited in the days of Noah, when the ark was being prepared, to which a few, that is, 8 beings, were saved through water. Okay, now there's some people, you keep that out in front of me here, okay? Some people believe that, this is a figure, first of all, it says it in the next passage. Some people believe that Yeshua, back in the days of Noah, went and preached unto the souls in prison in the days of Noah. But I believe, first of all, that Yeshua is prefigured, and I'm going to use that word, whatever word you want to use for it, that the understanding of the Messiah, when he was to take upon flesh, was revealed in the Tanakh from very first verse to the very last verse, so that you would understand when you saw that same Mashiach, that same Messiah, and even the things that he was going to do when he took upon flesh and dwelt among us, you saw it in the lives of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You saw it in the creation. And how many myriads of books are there out there now? I was just glancing at one wherever I was in your house in there. The temple revealed in the garden, Dr. Dean died, for example. And all of a sudden these things are coming out, showing these things from the very beginning. Well, that's been always has been true from the very beginning. I believe that Yeshua did, when he died on that tree, I believe he did go to what we call the lower regions or whatever, and he did set the captives free, Ephesians chapter 4, and that Messiah was represented by Noah in a figure in the passage you just read, okay? And how many times do we have Noah as a type of Christ? I mean, how many books are there? Joseph as a type of Christ. And the reason why is because that's the way the Father designed it. And that's the reason why he can say to the Pharisees and Sadducees, how many times have I told you this? How many times have you been shown this and this and that in all your feasts? Here you talk about Messiah in all your feasts, and then when you see the feast, you do the Messiah, all of a sudden there's no connection whatsoever. And you've been making a connection for centuries before that. That's a deep spiritual thing going on there, to deny the very thing that you've been doing over and over and over again. And when he actually comes and fulfills that, because the idea of fulfillment in Hebrew, maleh, means to put the life into it. Once again, that's the idea of very good, to fill. So that's why when you have, see, I was going to talk about this tonight, or tomorrow night, back tomorrow night, and that the idea of something going from good to very good was when the Father filled it with something. So when you have the water, for example, and it's good. We had discussed that the other night. It's good, which means what? It's completed for its purpose. But there's no life in it yet. And so what he did, he filled, maleh, the waters with the sea creatures. He filled the heavens with the fowl. And he filled, maleh, the ground. So in Hebrew, the word fulfilled is the same word to fill up a glass of water as it is to fulfill a prophecy. And the whole idea from its very first occurrence in Scripture is to put the life into it. So the idea of fulfilling something, when Yeshua fulfilled Passover, he put his life into it. All right? Yeah, he put the purpose and function into it. Remember, that's what good is all about, and very good. Produce life. So he gives his life in these feasts, and he will give himself, if you will, in the last 3 feasts that have also yet to be fulfilled. So the idea of fulfilling is to put life into it. So when Yeshua stands and says, I came not to destroy the law and the prophets, but to what? Malay, to fulfill, to put the life back into the law and the prophets. Because in Hebrew thought, those people that wrote the Bible, those guys, Hebrew thought the letter of the law was when you just read the black fire on the white, black fire on the white fire, the black letters on the white paper. In other words, you got up at the Bema seat and you opened up the Torah scroll and you took a little yod. We have something that resembles a yod. Okay, breath mints. God. Okay? And they would point to the scroll and they would guide. Okay, they run the yod along the letters and they would speak forth the Torah portion. And when someone came up to that Bema seat and they read the Torah portion with the yod and there was no life in it, they were just rotely going through the motions. Gee, we don't know anybody like that in religious circles too. That just goes through the motions. There's no life in it. There's no relationship with the author of the scroll. They call that one who was honoring Elohim with their lips. Right? And it was called the letter of the law. So they would call someone who's reading the Torah with no life in it, honoring him with just with their lips, and it was called the letter of the law. Now when they came up and read the same scroll, same words, same black fire on white fire, but now they put life into it. They had a relationship with the author of the Torah. They call that honoring God with their heart and the spirit of the law. The reason I'm bringing it up is because many Christian theologians interpret 2 Corinthians, when Paul mentions the letter of the law and the spirit of the law, they interpret that as the letter of the law is the keeping the commandments in the Old Testament, and the spirit of the law is not keeping the commandments in the New Testament. Okay? And I'm thinking, what planet, Mr. Theologian, did you come, or have you been living on? The letter of the law is the word of Elohim with no life in it. The spirit of the law is the same Torah with no life into it now. So Yeshua knew that Phariseeism and the religious systems of the day had removed the life out of the Torah. You just wrote this and wrote that. And so he says, I came not to destroy the Torah and the prophets. I came to fill it up. To fill it back up. Put the life back into it. Yeah, it is also a Hebrew idiom, the concept of fulfilling the law and the prophets. That's also Hebrew idioms that has to do with translations and things of that nature. But okay, anyway, so what I'm saying is that in Noah, through Noah, Yeshua preached to all those people in the days of Noah who were imprisoned, and not in the sense of being down in Hades, okay, but in the sense of being held captive by the enemy. And why would not get on the ark. Would not get on the ark. I don't think it's could not. I don't think the fathers said it to anybody because they couldn't, okay? They wouldn't get on the ark. So I believe that's why he goes on to say he did this in a figure. That whole thing with the days of Noah was a figure. So Yeshua preached to the people through Noah, a preacher of righteousness to those who are captive. Okay, if that makes sense, you're welcome. Yes, Al.
Can I add something to her question there?
Yes.
Okay.
You pass that down, give you a dollar.
Hold on a second here. All right. In that passage in 1 Peter chapter 3, it says in the first verse, I don't have it in front of me right now, but it says that it was by the Spirit that he was quickened. And we know that means resurrected or raised from the dead. So it was the just for the unjust. Yeshua was the just. Everybody else is the unjust, whether it be from the perspective of before the cross, or everybody is looking future to the Messiah. We're after the cross. That's us. We're looking back to the Messiah, just for the unjust. But he says, by the same Spirit that quickened or raised him from the dead, he went and preached to those people during Noah's time. And